Welcome to Python Lesson 18. In this lesson, we're going to learn a new programming concept called functions, which allow us to encapsulate a process under a specific name, which we can then call. Again, this is completely different than what you've been working on because it really is simply going to take what you've learned and package it so we can use it. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to create a new file in Replit. So you can click on this button, and we're going to call this my functions. So we got two files here. So we're going to write the majority of our code and our exploration of functions in this file, but then we're going to use this file to kind of see how to use functions. In order for us to bring whatever code we write here into our program, we're going to write this statement: from my functions, import everything. This asterisk is pretty universally accepted as being kind of like a wild card to signify to bring in everything. We've seen the import command before, such as with import math. So now you're seeing a different version of it where we are importing stuff, code, but we're specifying specifically where to import it from, which is from this file. Some students sometimes make the mistake of putting .py here. No need to put .py because that's the only thing you can import in a Python program, which is other Python code. So having done that, we got a little, oops, lost my asterisk. Let's get to actually learning how to create a function. So let's go back to our function file. So the way you identify a function in Python is to write the word def, which represents define. So we're defining a function. The next thing you have to specify is a name for a function, a name for a process that you're trying to do. So we're going to keep it simple in that we're going to simply write the word greeting, and then we're going to write the parentheses. You are familiar with functions. You've used functions such as math.pal, a list.append. So functions is not a new concept to you. You've used them already. The difference here is that you're actually creating them. And let's keep this simple. Let's simply say print hello. So here's our function. We've created a function called greeting, which will simply print the word hello. So this is a little bit of syntax. Again, you're going to see a lot of examples in this video. This video is going to be a little bit longer just because the number of examples I will be showing you. Okay, so here's our function. We can now, from our main program, do this, greeting. So let's run it. And there we have it, hello. So right now, the way this works is that we've imported all the code from our function file. And our function file has a function called greeting. So what the computer does is that when it sees this, it goes over to this file, finds the function, and does the code inside of it. Right? So maybe we can do something like this. Let's not say greeting once. Let's be overly zealous and let's do greeting 5 times. Okay. So now what you're seeing is, okay, the process can be a little more involved. We can have a for loop as part of our function. So now when I go here and I do run, I'll see the word hello 5 times. And again, this might be, you're like, all right, so what? Nothing too significant. So let's try to create a function that might be a little more useful to us. So I believe in an earlier example, we had done something such as, how to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. And you had to write a sophisticated formula for that. So what if we did this instead? Let's create a function that does Fahrenheit to Celsius. In order for us to be able to do that, we need a temperature. This is now called a parameter, which again, it's information that a function needs. So if you notice in this case, the greeting doesn't have a parameter, doesn't take anything in. We can change that up. So let's continue on with this example, because what you're going to see here is that this particular function is going to return some information. And hopefully you notice the way I'm kind of saying things to kind of lead you that program is just an extension of our natural language. So we're going to return some information. And what we're going to return is the Celsius. Now the formula for Celsius, hopefully I'll get it right. I'll be able to figure it out if I got it right by testing it out. I believe it's the Fahrenheit temperature minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. Oh, because it's not, it's the temperature. Okay, so there it is. So if we run our program, notice we still only get the hellos because functions by themselves don't do anything. We actually have to call the functions. So let's try that. Let's do a print of f underscore 2 underscore Celsius of, let's say, 32. Okay, so 32 degrees Fahrenheit should be 0 degrees Celsius. Let's test that out. And there it is. All right, so the formula was correct. And hopefully you can see here, we could do a little string interpolation to make things look nicer. So we could say 32 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to, do a little curly brackets, do a little string interpolation. We'll put the call to the function in the string interpolation is equal to degrees Celsius. All right, so let's see what this looks like. All right, so a little better, obviously. I mean, I could put a couple extra spaces in here. Okay, and honestly, why don't we take it a step further? Why don't we ask the user for the temperature? Enter temperature. And now what I can do is, now I could string interpolate the temperature and also provide it as the number that we're passing into the function. Again, there's a lot going on here. So let's take it slow. This is just review from previous lessons. We're creating a variable called temperature. We're getting the information from the user, and we're converting it to an integer. If it makes it a little easier, maybe I can do this. Result equals. And I could take this out of the string interpolation because, again, it might look a little hard to read there. And I could do it like that. So let's create another variable result, which is the conversion of the Fahrenheit to Celsius using the temperature that the person gave us. This temperature, whatever number the user gave us, now gets sent to the function. The function now accepts the temperature, subtracts 32, multiplies it by 5/9, and then returns that calculation back to the main program. So now it's stored in result, which now we can do this, and let's do another one. I happen to know that 212 degrees Fahrenheit should be 100 degrees Celsius. Let's see. And there you go. Okay. So that was one example of function. Let's try the same thing up here with our greeting now. Because notice our greeting just simply said hello. So perhaps we can ask the user for their name. So we'll say enter name. Let's pass the name into the program. Now I'm going to do something just to demonstrate an error. So I'm going to run the program. I'm going to enter a name, Castro. And you'll see that it says greeting takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. What that's referring to is we're trying to give greeting some information. We're trying to give the function greeting a name. But when you go to functions, notice there's nothing in here. There's nothing in there to accept the name. So in order to fix that, we have to do this. So now it should work. Let's go back to the main program. Let's clean this up a little bit. And I'm going to demonstrate another error here along the same lines. So we fixed our problem. Greeting accepts a name, and we're giving it a name. But notice what I did with the temperature. I took the temperature out. So the Python should run the first one without a problem, but then it's going to crash here. Let's see that. All right, so let's enter name. Still says hello. We forgot to go in there and do something with names. We'll fix that in a second. Let me show you what's happening with temperature now. Let's enter a temperature, 32. Okay, so the message reads a little bit different. Missing 1 required positional argument, temp. So what this is telling you is that it sees that temperature, this Fahrenheit to Celsius, it wants a temperature, but we didn't give it one. All right. So now you've seen kind of both sides of the coin. What happens when you give a function information that it doesn't want, and when you don't give a function information it does want. So whatever you do here has to match what you do here. Now the variable names, we're going to keep them the same just for this lesson, but there is flexibility. So the way I'm saying it hopefully makes sense to you. Whatever you have here should somewhat match what you have here. And that's because we're using variables. Now, let's go back to our greetings functions. Let's do something with our greeting, which is, let's actually put the person's name in there. All right, so here we got enter name. We'll say Castro. Enter it, we get hello Castro. And while we're here, we'll just put a space there. And now let's go back to here. Let's do 32. And now everything works. So the key to working with functions is first to identify a name for your function and a purpose for it. So for instance, we decided to create a function called greeting, which would simply display a greeting of hello 5 times. I'm going to change this example a little bit more just to make it more flexible. And then we also created another function that its purpose was to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. It needed a temperature. It did the calculation. And in this case, it returns information. This one doesn't return information. This one simply does something, which is to print stuff to the screen. That's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. But if a function does need to return information, this is how you do it. You simply write the word return. Again, we're going to do an example here in a little bit that uses an if statement to kind of hone in on this idea of a return. But before we do that, I want to improve on our greeting example. Because notice it always says hello Castro 5 times. What if we don't want that? What if we want to be able to allow the user to specify how many times to say hello? So now we can provide 2 parameters, 2 pieces of information, which is namely the name and how many times. Now, if I were to run the program like this, take a second, would this work? Okay, let's go back to the function. The function now needs a name and the number of times to display hello, that name. So doing it just like this, will this work? Let's try it. So this is fine, enter name, it's on line 3, not a problem there. But now we get that error message again. Greeting missing 1 required positional argument times. So if you recall over here, it's looking for the number of times. We didn't give it. So let's simply do, let's say 2. So notice there's flexibility now. I can display the name Hello Castro twice. Doesn't have to be 5 times anymore. Displays it twice. 32. Let's run it again. Oops, let me stop it. Let me change this to, let's say, 10, for instance. And notice I'm not having to go back to the function to change anything. Everything's being passed through these parameters in terms of information. And hopefully you can see here, we could have asked the user, well, how many times do you want to display hello? We could have done it as a separate variable. But I wanted to show you that it doesn't always have to be a variable. You can put hard numbers in there to make this work. All right, so let's do one more example. And let's do it using an if statement. So let's say we wanted to have a function that will determine if you can vote. Now, what kind of piece of information would I need to know if a person can vote? So we're going to go with the easy one first, which is simply the age. So if a person is older, is at least 18 years of age, they can vote. So if you kind of notice what I said, if the person is at least 18. So that's an if statement. So we can say if age is greater than or equal to 18, we can return maybe the word yes. We can do that. We can return a string. Otherwise, we can return the word no. So what you're seeing here in this example, you can have multiple return statements based on what you want. And you're seeing the integration of an if statement. Now, I'm not going to go through every single example, but anything that you've learned so far in terms of for loops, list, if statements, mathematical operations, for loops with if statements in it, they can all be stuck inside of a function. That's all a function does, is just take your existing code and encapsulate it under a process. So let's go back to our main program. Let's make some use of this. And let's ask the user for their age. So we'll say age is equal to, and let's do it as a number. So we'll say input, enter age. And now let's do a print statement. And let's see if we can make this work. I think we can make it work. So let's say can vote. So in this example, I'm actually going to show you how to use a function within the string interpolation. There's no need for us to create an extra variable like we did up here. I thought that for this example, being the first one that you were exploring functions, it might make more sense, but you can do functions within the string interpolation. All right. So we're going to have can vote. Yes or no can vote. So let's see if that reads right. So if your age is 18, can vote is going to return yes. So this would read yes, you can vote. If your age is less than 18, then this will return no, you. See, that's a little, that's going to read funny. You can vote. All right, so let's see. Let's just make it simple. I don't want to work with the English. So vote, we'll put yes or no. We'll keep it simple. All right. I think we got everything. Let's give it a try. And so here's our name. And you know what? Let's do something different. Bob. So Bob is there. I think today's temperature is 68, just for the sake of doing a different number. So apparently 68 is 20 degrees Celsius. Enter the age. We'll put 47. Hopefully I can vote. And there you go. Vote yes. Let's run it again. Again, never be happy with running the program once. Run it a couple of times. So we'll do Alice this time. Let's say 71. Eventually temperature will get warmer. And let's say the age of many of you, which is probably like 14. and vote no. Okay, so let's review a little bit of the syntax. So what's involved in creating a function? First thing you have to do is you have to write the words def. Then you have to come up with a name for a function. And I'll tell you in the activities that I give you, I will provide you the name. I'll also be using the word accepts. So I will read this as create a function greeting that accepts the name and the number of times. So again, this is going to be an excellent exercise in you reading a scenario and then seeing how that converts to code. The next part of this would be for you to kind of do what you've already learned, which is how to translate the words for the process into code. If the scenario says the word returns, that means that somewhere in your function you better return. So for instance, this particular scenario, I wouldn't write the word return because I wouldn't say that in the scenario. I would simply say display. So if a scenario doesn't have the word return does not exist in the function. Again, this is new. You will need a lot of practice, and you're going to hopefully get that in the activity. We are not leaving functions. You'll be doing functions for a couple of videos. So let's go back to our main presentation and let's review what we've learned. So what are functions? Functions are just a nice way to package code that you already learned underneath a specific name that we can then call. Functions sometimes accept information, and functions sometimes return information. In order for us to be able to use functions, we have to actually call them. Creating a function, doing the def is not enough. You have to actually do it from the main program. So I would suggest look back at this video as you're doing the activity and kind of refer to some of the code. Good luck.